All right. Welcome to another video here. I'm starting a little mini series. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it just yet, so look at the title because I guess I've come up with it by then. But I want to do sort of like episodic content where we're breaking down little chunks of kind of my thoughts. That way, it's not some super long video about different things. I want to kind of focus it, and these are just going to be content of people that have asked me questions or questions that I had myself that needed answered and things that I found and just kind of things I'm thinking about while evaluating the roster and seeing what it is that we can and can't do and problems that we need to solve. At least that's the way how I attack things. And the first one I want to talk about is going to be Clea. I think that while the greatest addition to Convocation right now is Wanda. We'll get into that. I just need to test it a little bit more. I did take Convocation to an event, but I wanted to do really well, so I went to like a style that I kind of knew would work and focused a lot more on bowing and stuff like that. I had Wanda in there if the snares came up, but I didn't kind of force them myself. So I'm going to be forcing them in the coming weeks through like pickup games and stuff to try and get her on the table a little bit more. Everything I played of her, I really like though. So, but we will do a Wanda episode at one point, just not right now. I do want to focus on Clea. I think I picked up some things. I think people are asking me questions that are showing me that I don't think they are understanding the play pattern that I'm doing. So it makes it a little bit different. And I think I'm getting a lot of value out of her. I'm not saying that she's a must have three. I don't think we're there yet. I'm not saying that she's going to be in my roster forever, but I'm saying that I'm seeming to get a lot more value than some of the other people that are either questioning it or not really, I think, approaching it the same way as I am. And so maybe by me putting it out there, we can either have a discussion or maybe I can convince them otherwise that Clea is worth trying out or, she can do these wondrous things. I think the first kind of roadblock I'm seeing is a lot of people are seeing her, since she can buff the dice with the talents of Farala, that, she's just like, well, is she a better Morta? Well, she's definitely a better Morta, I'll give you that. But a lot of people are kind of like putting her in that same boat. They're both support models for sure. We do have a support bloat issue, so when you're looking at three threats, I think you would always only ever bring Clea or Mordo. I think it's kind of a canon event, unfortunately, for Convocation players that are new to like try and put Clea and Mordo in the same list, and then like, oh, I can double buff attacks and stuff like that, and it just doesn't really work out that well. I guess if it is going to work, it's going to work with a character like Wanda, where you can count extra dice face. We don't have natural rerolls in the affiliation, and I'm not counting uh, the flipped leadership at all. I guess other than double buffing like a plain turn, but that just seems like it's too hard to set up. I just don't think it's worth it. So from that standpoint, yes, she is better at buffing the dice. There's not the same drawback as taking a damage, which I think is worse. She can do it from a nicer range, not as much because I think Mordo's range 4 with no, he's range 3 with the medium base. So I think that hers covers more then. But yeah, it's just she's a better model than Mordo. She can affect the board a little bit more. She has other things that she can do, which is what I want to get into. I want to get into using the places, using the throws. These things I think are like where you're going to find the most value from Clea. I do think that buffing dice can be really nice, especially when you have strange. If you want to buff, the 6 to 8 dice, sure, okay. I think that has its place because you can pick a type. You can maybe snipe somebody out, right? The pierce attacks from like magic, strange, ancient one, if you are running her, those you can get some value out of buffing. I think obviously Wanda's attacks that we talked about, but I'm trying to find value from Clea when Wanda is not on the table, and I think you can find it, and that's going to be important to whether she can stay in the roster or not. I don't think that Convocation really as much as you can run the 4 wide, like 17 with Wanda, or scale it up from there with 2 4s or something like that. I think you are going to find that they're still better at playing this, like, and I hate the term, but like mid-range mix, where if your opponent is super focused on scoring, you can out attrition them and kind of chase them down. And if they're looking to slow the game down and kind of punch you out, you can find ways to be that scoring team and find ways to score out, as long as the crises kind of match up. So I'm not actively hunting ways to kind of match them at their game with, like, I don't really want to run like the convocation 4 wide with Wanda into the defenders 4 wide. I don't think, like, I think that's a losing battle just because of how they're set up. So we'll see what the meta brings, and we'll see what other teams are trying to do 4 wide and matching them that way. Until that happens, I'm just going to kind of naturally let it happen in the games of like tournaments that I'm trying to do really well at. And if I have like pickup games and stuff like that, then I'll try and shift my crises to force Wanda on the table a little bit more just to get some more out of those games. But today's episode is about Clea, and we're going to try and find ways to get value out of her. So a lot of what people run in Convocation is I see lots of Infinity Formula, I see lots of Scoundrels. Depending on the meta, I think like you could be afraid of like a Kingpin here if he becomes pretty strong, or I mean, webs are so far like down right now, so it doesn't even matter. So like I think we're good to run superpowered Scoundrels. I've always had like good time on this mission. The only time I've really ever struggled is when we had some really good Kingpin players in our meta and they were running Juggernaut, and there was just like nothing I could do, I felt like at some points. But I've always kind of played this. I've had fun with it, and I think I picked up some things playing Space Maw that we can kind of apply to Clea at just a much larger or much smaller scale, and we can do things like that. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at there, that there's going to be a lot of stuff there. And then Power Overload is another new one. It brings us a 19 that I think we like. I don't have my roster out here, but we can run things like Strange, Emma, Enchantress, and then Magic Clea. I think that's what, 3, and then a 4 is 10, and then a 4 and a 5, yet 19. And then you can run a 20 where you just change Emma out for Mind Gem Loki, which is who I'm playing right now in my 5-threat slot. And you just have a lot of different bows, and you'll be able to, I find, score the bonus point quite effectively. And then it's just kind of stopping your opponent from also doing the same, or just breaking parity by doing it on one round. Sometimes you can do it if your opponent's not really expecting it. You can do it round 1, and then it's on them to break parity from there. And you can just kind of play like a cagey game, or you can try and keep doing it and run up the score a little bit, depending on what extracts you're on. But I want to find value from Clea in these situations, because I'm really not trying to play Wong at higher than 17 threat. And if I can find a 17 threat that I can run all the time, it might be currents for Wong and finding value elsewhere. Right now, I haven't quite been able to find that, but there's still more testing to be done. Anyway, this is what we're kind of focused on. It does get a little bit odd with the 17 Infinity, because we definitely don't want to run Clea or Wong there, but we're not always 17 on Infinity. We can match with the extract, and then that's where Clea will come out, because we're also never playing Clea and Wong at the same time. I don't think that's I think it might be doable in some situations, but it's not something I really want to explore. I think that's exactly where you run into the support bloat that I always talk about. So let's get some secures down. I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about Infinity. This is the one that I think it's common, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about also applies. They're a little bit wider out than Superpowered Scoundrels, so that they'll just apply even more, I guess you could say, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to do this for the sake of just visualizations. Now, most players are going to know this just from MCP kind of, well, let me put these guys up too. This is more so like MCP basics. on maps like this, it's good to know your sort of range bands, right? This should not be anything groundbreaking, but for those out there that don't realize, then it should be pretty essential to getting the most out of Clea, right? So um, you always want to deploy her in a way that you can one walk to whatever secure you want to do, because you do want to be, building your power, and you can do it in any order you want. So a lot of what I like to do, and say, Strange is deployed here, maybe, centrally, and we have another model right to the other side of him. You want to build your power, right? Whatever it ends up being. Cool, we got Skull, we take some damage, that's okay. We're just playing as a 5/6 now, which is perfectly normal for a 3 threat, so it's okay. She's squishy, but it's okay. And then, we're in range for Hulkbuster here or Strange here. But this is where I think that a lot of players go wrong in trying to get value out of her round 1. I think Convocation players are used to playing Wong, and they're like, oh, I gotta pass power to someone. I gotta, help my Strange to, scalpel round 1. I gotta do something. There's got to be something I can do. And I don't think that's always the case with Clea. And I think that's fine, because I think what a lot of people are running into, and they talk to me and they're like, I just can't get value out of Clea. I hate having to activate her early to build power so that I have stuff to do. And those are the players that I know are relying a little bit too much on boosting dice, because they feel like they have to go early with Clea so that they can have the power for when they're activating their bigger models to then boost those dice. And in Convocation, I don't think that's necessarily what we always want to be doing. I think it's better to go late with her to rearrange the board as much as we can and really utilize our placement on our buddies and throwing other models off the points, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to, resist doing that. But I will say there are some plays you can do, right? Like if you're running Hulkbuster or something like that, portaling him up to the side can be pretty strong, because now he can like walk, hit and run onto the point or something like that, right? And that can be pretty strong. Or if like there's someone out here with an extract, they can do that and get a shot at an extract guy and then get onto this point, which maybe your opponent's not seeing. So I think there are some plays you can do turn 1. I'm not completely down on them, but it's not something I want to do all the time. So one thing I do want to set up is kind of this first initial walk. And I always try to set up on the inside of something like this, and just mostly a full walk up and setting up on the inside. And what that'll do is it'll help you hit the midline without really exposing yourself for like a small base to do the same. Right? You can see here, their Clea, if they were running her, would not be able to make it. But someone like their Mordo, he would be able to make it, right? So it is contextual a little bit. If they have a 4 dice attack that you're worried about, but maybe you didn't take your damage on your round 1, so you don't care that much. Or maybe, most range 4 attacks are going to be like 4 dice gainers. A lot of them are energy. You're rolling your 3 dice or whatever. Sometimes you're in cover if you have super powered scoundrels. I don't think you necessarily have to be that much really worried about it. And this is a really good position for you, and I'll show you why. Especially for something like this, right? So say we did something with Strange, and we, placed him on the point, and then he got a small move off, right? Maybe he got pushed by an attack, thrown by an attack, something like that. Something where he's taking damage, maybe just getting thrown into something, but it's going the distance or something like that, right? So what you can do is, and again, we're talking about like sort of basics here, but as you can see, the small move is larger than the range 2, right? That's what we would be placing at, so we are losing some value. So you have to make up some of that value with the bump, or the distance, I should say, to be able to get back on that point. But if you just bump, sort of the width of the tool, That way you're not fully bumping towards the point. This opens up scenarios where Clea can then just walk up, be within 4 here, and there's obviously plenty of movement here, but she basically walks up, place you within 2, back onto the point, and then walks back to where she was. Right, and like those are situations that your opponent's not necessarily going to be ready for. You're affecting the board like so far away from where you actually are, and I think it's very important to be able to kind of know that. And then the other thing that she can do, if she's your last activation, is she can walk up to their side. Maybe they only left one person here, and she doesn't even have to walk that far to be within 3 to throw this off. And you could even do some stuff, which I've done before, is, say we're sitting on 4 power. I mean, this is infinity formula, so we might have more. But, I mean, say we are on an infinity formula, right? Now we're at 5 power at the top of, no, we'd be at 6. 1 from the first power phase, and now this. So, like, what you can do with 6 power is, I mean, you could walk up, throw off one of their models here, and then you can just place yourself here, and obviously then you still have an action to do whatever you need to do. But even if you don't have 6 power, like you're sitting on say 5 for some reason, right, you can walk up, gainer them, and then have the power to throw off and place yourself. I think it's just like very important to know that there are things you can do later in the game that is the same thing that we splash a lizard for those reasons, right? To be able to walk to a point and throw it, or throw someone off or something like that. And getting the power from infinity formula can be very strong. Trying to make sure you have a target for your gainers can be very strong, right? Something like that. It's okay to teleport yourself up a little bit and then maybe double gainer or something like that. Like there's options you can do that can really throw off as a last activation. And so I'm often not trying to activate Clea early, because I think that that's where you open up your opponent to be able to then dive her, take her off the board, or take a model of yours and like go up in attrition without punishing your priority, or their priority, I should say. So if I'm waiting for Clea to go last, and if they want to take away an activation from me, they're going to take away a Clea activation, I'm kind of okay with that. I can get more out of my other models as well. And it's sort of like leaving up Wong as like a dare to your opponent, saying like, sure, Days Wong, you'll give me prio for next turn, and then Strange is waking up with 10 power prio. I'm okay with that, or something like that, depending on the board state. So I think leaving Clea till late can be both a bait to your opponent, but also you can get powerful activations out of your 3 threat. That's, I mean, it's still a 3 threat. You're not going to be dazing anyone or taking extra X off people or anything like that. But I think the community as a whole needs to kind of like reevaluate what a 3 threat can really do for you after playing with Zemo for so long, because that's just not normal. And maybe we have Echo now, but overall, you're going to have to get some value out of your affiliated 3 threats, and I think you can get a lot of value out of it this way. So I just want to show kind of those things on infinity formula and what a lot of people might not be ready for. The other one that we're playing a lot of, or at least I think we should be, is Power Overload. And I think this is another one that you can do some pretty cool things with her that your opponent might not be ready for. All right, so we're going to turn these off real quick. I think if you are just a little bit to the side, right, from here, you still have a lot you can focus on. Your gainer will cover most of this, which is always good. You can, if your opponent is going to attack your point, you'll have a target to, build some power off of if you need to. Do something with your turn, which is always cool. You'll definitely be able to move and throw them off, right? I think a measurement that a lot of people should know when you're dealing with it, and it's a little bit awkward to do. I don't think a lot of people kind of kind of work with bending the tools, but some of the more seasoned, I guess, TTS people will do it. And so a long move bent like this and a range 4 is just a little bit under the range of what Clea can do from a medium walk range 3, which is her throw range. So as you can see here, we cover just about most of the point. We're probably a little bit off there, but we'll pick up a little bit. It's like a third of an inch or something like that, because the small bases are not a full inch. But as you can see from here, and we put like a range 3 out. You know, that's going to cover pretty much everything, and that's just like about what a small base is, right? Something like that. And then she'll cover that whole point to throw it off, right? And then you just simply walk back home. And I'm not saying that these are things that you are going to be doing every round, because you do need those actions to build power. But if you can do them like every other round from your 3 threat, that's pretty strong, right? And then maybe you have somebody else to cover your back point, so maybe she can build power, walk, and, you know, cover that, right? And then same thing for, obviously your range is even farther if you have to place your teammate back on, if they got displaced or something like that. And I just think that we should be looking at those avenues as to get value out of Clea more than the dice boost. I think the dice boost is there. Sure, if you have an attack that's kind of worth it, like a Mystic Pierce or a Wanda attack, or someone that really needs to go down, something on your plane's turn, think about boosting dice. But I don't think we should be boosting dice just because, especially early on, when you're, you know, the chances that you could do 5 damage to a 6 health model now, or 6 damage to a 7 health 4 threat or something like that, and then they wake up with prio and you gave them all this power, could be pretty devastating. So I'm a little bit down on dice boosting as in you know, in general, for like just to do it. Well, we need to have a good reason, a good solid reason. We need to, you know, get this extract off somebody. We need to really get this daze or something like that. And you want to boost it to kind of up your odds, sure. But early on, like round 1 dice boosting, just to like start the battle early, I think that can be very devastating to us, because we open up characters to do a lot with their power from your opponent, and or it could just not work out, and then you just wasted your power and you shut off some of these other plays that you have coming through. And I think that it's way worth it to not only either fix the positioning that your opponent burned resources to put you in, and then you're fixing it, or disrupt their positioning as well as scoring VPs on the back of it, or you know, or stopping them from doing VPs if you're, you know, just doing something else like that. And then like the other thing that's, I think, pretty cool is if you're diving their home D and they push you off of it, you can also walk up, cover most of that, right? I mean, you're not going to cover the complete backside of it. That's a little bit less than a 1, but I mean, most likely you were on this side of the D and you got pushed back in, and then, you know, you can cover quite a big range to put them back on the point and then just walk home. And there's not really any other models in the game that can that do that at 3 threat, right? This is, you know, I'm taking a little bit of inspiration from how I played my Man-Thing or other things when he got power, and now you can sort of build your power without them having to interact with you. You do have to be a little bit careful about your health. You know, I tend to try to build power as safe as I can. So if someone's in range, I'd rather double gainer them than and use the power you got from the power phase than you know, spend an action to maybe do 2 more damage to myself. If I once I take it damage once, then, you know, I'm second guessing it a little bit. I don't really want to burn too much power unless I feel it's closer to the game, or I don't, or what she's doing isn't gonna matter if she dazes or not. Then I don't matter. It doesn't matter as much. But you know, try and build your power as safe as possible. That should kind of go without saying. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with power overload. I mean, scoundrels, there's a lot of it that just taken from the infinity, but you know, we should just know that we're a little bit farther in. I know I kind of briefly mentioned it, but this is, you know, same thing, right? This guy's going to be able to hit us if we walk up here, but you know, we're in cover now or something like that. Actually, one more thing that I did want to mention on infinity, since it's wider, I wanted to show people that, and this is kind of the reason why I always make sure to go on the inside of your infinities, is she can, you know, when she has the power, of course, but it's infinity, so you're building it quite well. You can walk, place yourself. The reason why you do this first is because then you could be a little bit more accurate with your walk, and then, you know, you could walk to within 1 here. Sorry, TTS is giving me a little bit of trouble with the ones today, but you know, you have quite a bit of movement. If you know, terrain was maybe in the way, it's like, you know, you have a little bit left over. You can use like a place to get around it. She has flight, so there's not too much that's going to get in your way. It's just like if something's in this area, might mess you up a little bit. But you know, you could just walk to within 1 here. Doesn't have to be that tight, and you know, you could just do that like every other round or something like that. Or if they do a damage to you, you can just go back and forth to do that. And there's not a lot of 3s that can rotate like that. I think that you could do it on a Mutant Madman. Leave this point flipped. Your opponent's like, okay, well, you know, whatever. Clea's just there. Maybe they have a couple people on here so that they're not too worried about you flipping over them with only 2. I don't really want to bring Clea to a Mutant Madman, but when your other option's Mysterio, then, you know, maybe she's okay or something like that. I don't know. But I'm just saying you could then still make it over here to flip, which not a lot of 3s can do. So it's always good to know that you can do that. Not something I want to do every game, but maybe if there's a lot of fighting going on over here, or your opponent's moved a lot of models over here and you have an extract from the beginning, you know, maybe you can know that your Clea can get over here to safety. It's just good knowledge to have. Yeah, I don't want to go over 30 minutes. I wanted to keep this a little bit shorter, a little bit of chunk. But I mean, those are the 3 kind of crises that I'm looking at the most right now, and trying to get value out of Clea here. And I think I showcased at least a new way of thinking, hopefully for some of you, that you know, you can bank that power, maybe not get a round 1 playoff to make the rest of your rounds a little bit smoother with Clea, open up more options, and then she will be a bit of a nightmare for your opponents to deal with later on. And if they want to not deal with Clea as your last activation, then they daze her and they open up Prio for one of your other hard-hitting models. And then maybe that's where you use your dice boosting to kind of initiate a swing turn, we'll say, where you daze a couple models because Strange can daze 1, then scalpel over and daze another or something like that, or Wanda pops off and something like that. I think that this is how we're going to get value out of Clea moving forward, if she's going to make it in the list, and that's a big if. I think this is how she's going to have to do it, and finding value late in the game, late in the rounds, to score VPs, affect the board state. I think it can be very strong, and it just relies on the Convocation player knowing a little bit about Clea's ranges, what she can do to affect her power. I guarantee you it's going to catch your opponents out if they don't know it's coming. And sometimes you just rely on that a little bit. Sometimes your opponent doesn't have all the knowledge in the world, and that's okay. Even if they do, it can still be tough to play around, to constantly be in your head. It's like one of those mental tax things. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for listening. Let me know if you want other topics to go over besides Wanda. I know everyone wants Wanda. I will be working on that soon. Promise. Bye.